gentlemen, welcome to Ariel Helwani's MMA Show.
Back in your life on this Monday, November 26, 2018. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel Helwani. Welcome back to the program. Hope you had a lovely weekend. Let me just move my water over there. Hope you had a lovely week. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, hope you had a very nice Thanksgiving with your family and friends, and you ate a lot, and now you're feeling good about life. You're very full, and you're very thankful as well. We have a lot to discuss on the program today, my friends. There's a lot going on, as always. It was a very interesting weekend in the world of MMA. It's very rare that the UFC has an event over the weekend, and they're not the top story on Monday morning. Very rare. Doesn't happen often. That's the case this week, my friends. UFC had an event in Beijing, China. It was a fun event. It was an entertaining card. It was a card that had a lot of noteworthy things that happened on it. Most notable, Francis Ngannou is back. What a performance. What a win. 44 seconds. I saw 30 seconds, 45, 44, 43. Whatever the case is, he beat Curtis Blaydes once again. This time in less than a minute, he is back. He looked good. He looked rather svelte, I thought. Looked quick. Did not seem tentative. Big win for Francis Ngannou. He wins via TKO. I know Blaydes was a little upset over the stoppage. I thought it was the right call. And now, once again, we have Francis Ngannou, Le Prédateur, as a player at heavyweight. That's very big news. Also of note, Alistair Overeem wins his fight against Sergey Pavlovich. He snaps his 2-fight losing streak, and it was interesting because Beijing, to me, could have been a sort of changing of the guard at heavyweight with some new blood emerging. In the end, it's the old dogs, and in particular, Alistair Overeem, who emerges as a player still with the big boys. So Overeem wins, Ngannou wins. Some other nice performances. Huge win for Louis Smolka, snapping his 4-fight UFC losing streak, taking the fight on short notice. Weili Zhang is turning into a sensation at 115 pounds, and the UFC seriously has something with her. Not only is she a very talented fighter, she hails from China, and to have a fighter like that who hails from China, that is a very big deal for the company. She is aggressive, she is fun, she is a finisher, she's good on her feet and on the ground, as we saw on Saturday morning. Which, by the way, love the fact that the card was over by 8:20 a.m. Eastern time. I mean, who could beat that? Who could complain about that? So it was a good card, and we'll talk about the card, and we'll talk to some of those players on this card. But the story of the weekend, and the story that I think everyone is still kind of digesting and talking about on this Monday morning / afternoon, is Golden Boy MMA's first foray into the world of mixed martial arts. Golden Boy Promotions, to be more precise. And they had their first show Saturday night at the Forum in Inglewood, California. And, of course, it was Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell, number 3. And it ended up being a pretty sad affair. And it ended up being the kind of fight that I think a lot of us were expecting. Chuck did not look good. He did not look like the old Iceman. He had not fought in 8 years. He was coming off a string of bad losses. And he got knocked out in the first round by Tito Ortiz, who had not scored a knockout in the first round in well over a decade. Tito did not look spectacular, but obviously looked a lot better than Chuck. It was uncomfortable to watch. It was sad to watch. I felt depressed afterwards. I did pay $40 for that pay-per-view. I actually thought the pay-per-view had some nice moments. The broadcast team, will be talking to one of those members of the team in a matter of seconds, I thought was strong. Todd Grisham, Frank Mir, Rashad Evans. I think one of the big winners of the weekend was Deron Winn, who we'll also be talking to later in the program. Fought in the co-main event against the veteran Filthy Tom Lawler. He is a protege of one Daniel Cormier. A lot more people know who Deron Winn is. Now 5-0 as a professional. Went the distance, but clearly a name that we all should be paying attention to, and clearly a star on the rise. So it was an opportunity to give some guys some rub, so to speak, but the main event was a very depressing affair. And I think afterwards, there's a lot of grandstanding. There's a lot of people saying like, oh, Chuck should retire, things like. My general take is, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about it on the show, but very quickly off top, my general take is, look, we can't tell these guys when to retire. We can have our own opinion. They're not going to listen to us. They're fighters by trade. That's what they do. Chuck Liddell has said on numerous occasions that he did not feel alive. Like he needed this back in his life. He did not want to retire when he was asked to retire. It was the right call to retire back in 2010 when he lost to Rich Franklin, but he was just alive in the build-up, in the training camp, Saturday night. This is what he lives for. And, in the end, you could talk about his trainers, you could talk about the commission. In the end, it comes down to Chuck and his family, because they're the ones who are going to have to deal with the repercussions. And they wanted this. They knew the repercussions. They wanted it. Now, I think they'd be crazy to ever do this again, but I can't sit back here and say like, oh, Chuck, you need to do this, you need to do that. Look, no one tells me what to do. No one should tell him what to do. He's a big boy. He's a grown man. He's going to have to deal with the repercussions. Now, commissions like California, should they be above this? Yeah, they probably should. But guess what? There'll be Texas, there'll be Florida, there'll be Oklahoma, there'll be China, there'll be Saudi Arabia, there'll be Abu Dhabi, there'll be Israel. There'll be some other jurisdiction on the planet that's going to say, yeah, we want Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell, or some variation of that. We're entering an interesting time in our sport where there are guys like Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell way past their prime who are fighting and are making it uncomfortable for us. Remember, this sport is just 25 years young in this country. And at this juncture, we haven't had a lot of examples of what we saw on Saturday. Boxing has a whole book full of those examples. Uncomfortable fights where fighters are fighting well past their prime, not looking good, not looking fit, just making you sad, making you depressed, getting knocked out in fights and against opponents that you never thought in a million years when they were in their prime that they would get knocked out by. Well, that's what we're dealing with now. As the sport continues to grow, we're going to see a lot more fighters with long-term injuries, with CTE, with all kinds of things that boxing has been dealing with for quite some time. And Chuck is not the first example, because certainly we have seen it. We saw it with BJ Penn. We saw it with others, or we continue to see it with some fighters as well. But Chuck is one of the biggest names that we've seen a guy stick around a little too long, come back, try to rekindle that fire, and it just goes horribly wrong. He was not the old Iceman in there, and it was foolish to think that he'd be able to turn back the clock. It really was. It was uncomfortable to watch. It seemed like a guy that didn't know what he was doing in there. It really did. And in many ways, I thought Tito could have ended the fight a lot sooner. That's how just uncomfortable the whole thing was. That's how poor he looked in there. That's no knock on Chuck. He's been around for so long. He's taken a lot of shots. He shouldn't have come back. But I can't sit here and say, Chuck, you need to retire next. You embarrass yourself. You embarrass. But no, he's a legend, and he can do whatever the heck he wants. Now, we can choose not to take part in it. We could choose not to watch it or cover it or pay for it. But this is a big boy. This is a big boy. This is a guy who has done this for the majority of his life. It's just a byproduct of the sport. It really is. And that's why you don't have him going out there and saying, yeah, I'm done. Because I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back. I hope the people close to him, that's who this really falls on. It's his wife, it's his friends. Those are the people who should be sitting him down and saying no. But there's no guarantee of that, because they were in the front row and they should have known what was going to happen in this fight. So there's a lot to break down. There's a lot to digest. Let me run down today's lineup, and then we shall get to our first guest of the day. The aforementioned Deron Wynn will be on at around 3:55. Tito Ortiz will join us prior to him at around 3:40. Luis Smolka will be on at around 3:30. Talking about his big win this past weekend in Beijing. Carlos Silva, the president of PFL, will join us at 3 o'clock in studio. That's going to be a lot of fun. Speaking of in studio, it has been 7 years. I said 8 earlier in the day. It's actually 7. 7 years since John Jones joined us in studio. He will be in studio at 3 o'clock. No, I lied. 2:30. John Jones in studio. John Bones Jones in studio at 2:30. 2:05, Alistair Overeem. 1:45, Ngannou. And okay, we have a change of plans. First, let us go to the Skype machine. We'll be joined later by Frank Mir, but first let's go to the Skype machine to be joined by a man who I was very curious about what he thought of the Tito Ortiz-Chuck Liddell fight on Saturday. He was not there. He, prior to Saturday night, had been a part of Chuck Liddell's training camp for every one of his 29 professional fights, had cornered him for 27 of those 29 professional fights, but he did not take part in the training camp for this fight, did not take part in the fight itself as far as a cornerman position is concerned, was vocal in the build-up, once this was announced, that he did not feel comfortable about the whole thing. And I thought it would be interesting to hear his take on it all. So let's go to the Skype machine and say hello to John Hackleman, who has been by Chuck Liddell's side for so many years, but was not on Saturday night. John, we actually only see your mouth here. Can you tilt your camera up a little bit so I can see your full face? A little more. Yeah, there we go. Now I can see your glasses. Okay, a little higher. How are you, John?
Good. I'm good.
Okay, can you hear me?
Fantastic.
You can see me? We're all good?
I can see you. I can hear you.
Okay.
Everything's perfect.
Yeah,
Am I okay like this?
A little higher if you don't mind, because I just see like your nose at this point. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
So can I turn it sideways?
Oh, that's much better. That's incredibly better. Yes.
Okay.
That's perfect. John, good to have you on the show. You obviously weren't
Thank you.
In attendance on Saturday. Did you watch the fight?
I watched it on this phone, and I could see it about as good as I can see you right now. But yeah, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to watch it. Last minute, when I knew it was going to go on, I actually was talking to my friend on the phone, and I had him. He was watching it, so I had him FaceTime just so I could kind of watch it a little. I thought that would make it easier because I was nervous as shit. I was like pacing all day.
You were not a part of his training camp, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Were you asked to be a part of it?
Yes.
Why weren't you a part of it?
There's a lot of reasons. I think mainly just I think he knew how I felt about it. And I think they didn't want that kind of vibe in the camp, like somebody that's not for it. And it seemed like everybody around there was all like, hey, they were all into it and thinking it was a great thing. And I didn't. So I wanted to go mainly just to make sure that he was okay and that, everything was maybe, fix something if it was broken, or maybe talk someone into not doing this, or I didn't know, but I think they sensed my vibe because I was a little too negative about it going in, I think. And I think that I don't think they wanted that vibe around. So I didn't go.
Did it bother you that you were not a part of it?
Yes and no. I mean, maybe I could have done something a little different. Maybe I could have talked him out of it. Maybe I could have changed up some things. It didn't seem like there was a strategy at all. I'm not blaming his camp at all. They're new guys that have never trained with them before. And, without a chin, it's hard to have a really good strategy. But then with that said, if they saw something in the training camp, they could have maybe made it either adjustment or just pulled the whole thing. But like I said, I wasn't there. I can't speak for him. I've actually pulled guys out of fights during training camps if I think they don't look good, and they're going to get hurt. Safety is number one for me, always has been. So I don't know. It just didn't work out, and so I didn't want to bother him while he was in his training camp, and sometimes it was kind of hard to talk to his circle of people now.
Were you in communication with him at all in the training camp?
Yeah, we chatted a couple times, but like I said, he was kind of hard to get in touch with. He had a lot of people that were kind of communicating for him.
Okay.
So it just, we talked probably like, I don't know, maybe once a week.
Okay.
And that's kind of weird for us,
Oh, wow. Because usually you talk more than that.
Yeah, during something like this, yeah. Oh, well, like if he doesn't have a training camp, but just every day, we talk, I don't know how often, but we just talk like if I'm going to be in town or he's going to be here, we text. We're not like buddies. We've never been buddies. We're more like, kind of family.
Right.
But we don't hang out together or anything. But yeah, I felt bad about this fight from the get-go. I was against it from the get-go. I was there when we decided he was going to retire. And when and then he said, well, I wasn't really ready to retire back then, so I had to get it. Remember he was saying that?
Yeah.
He was 8 years ago. He was ready 8 years ago because, after the Rich Franklin fight, he was more than ready then. Right. I thought so anyway. Maybe I was wrong, but I thought he was ready to retire after Rich Franklin KO'd him.
When you
You know?
saw the footage of him at the open workouts, a lot was made of that. Did you have even
Yeah.
more concern?
No, I actually didn't, because when the cameras would come on in the old days, even like the camera in the dressing room, I knew it was showing to the other dressing room where his opponent was before the fight. Remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to have him do crazy stuff like, switch southpaw and just like make a crazy move just to throw everybody off. And I honestly thought that's what he was doing. I thought he was just sandbagging.
Wow. Okay. So
I really did.
So you didn't order the pay-per-view.
No, I didn't.
But you were aware when the fight was about to start.
Yeah, and I was talking to one of my students, and he said, "Oh, Chuck's gonna fight now." I said, "All right, FaceTime me." And he FaceTimed me, so I watched it through that.
What's going through your mind? So you told me 29 pro fights heading into this one. You were a part of all 29 training camps. You did not corner him for 2 of those fights, but you were still a part of the fight. Here you are at home watching this, the 8 years, the build-up, all that. What is going through your mind as the fight is starting? You're looking at him.
I was having my wife check my pulse, because my pulse was like I get nervous in the dressing room, but I was like 10 times more nervous, because at least in the dressing room and in the corner, I can, I have some control over what happens, and I can protect him, or I can give him some strategies. And I was just like, my heart was pounding. And the second he got clipped and went down, I felt sick to my stomach. It was like, this is a travesty. It was a travesty.
But prior to the knockout, you see the way he's fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, you know it's inevitable, right? Like, it's coming. It's like it's about to watch a car crash, right? It just seemed from the get-go that he was.
It was, but then in the back of my mind, forget the front of my mind, which was saying this. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, he's gonna land that right hand. Chuck's gonna land the right hand. Come on, he's gonna land it. Come on, Tito. Yeah, put your hands down. Put your hands down. And I was thinking he's gonna land that right hand in the back of my mind. But in the front of my mind, I was like thinking, this does not look good.
Was it worse than you thought?
Yeah.
Wow. In what way?
First round KO. I thought some bad things were gonna happen. I thought, Chuck, with the chin. So I thought it would be a KO if he lost, but I thought it'd be later in the fight and more of a, back and forth thing until he got clipped, because I think Tito still has his chin for the most part. And Chuck still has a knockout punch, but like Chuck is like a tank. He's not really that fast, but he has a huge cannon, and when it shoots and lands, it knocks the hell out of people. But his tank now doesn't have any armor, so he still has a huge cannon, but he doesn't have any armor, so people can shoot back at him and hurt him, and that's what happens now with him.
What did you think of Tito's performance?
I thought he did everything he had to do, and I thought it was, for lack of a better term, stellar. I think it was stellar against almost 50-year-old Chuck,
right.
Who's, but I don't think it would be stellar against anybody in the top 20 in the UFC or anything like that. But it was stellar for, an older group of guys like that.
When you actually saw him get knocked out, how did you react?
My wife put her arm around me because she knows how emotional I get during those times. And my heart, I just felt sick. I honestly felt sick to my stomach. And I was like, and then I had a little bit of relief. I honestly did, thinking, okay, maybe now everybody, his circle now, they get it.
Yeah.
They should have got it with the Rich Franklin fight. I don't know why. I guess the time, it kind of, I don't know, the time, made their memory different or something of that fight. I don't know. Maybe they should have watched that fight. But I thought I was relieved. I think now they're going to realize, no, just no more. No more. He has so many options. He could have such a comfortable and fun and happy life without getting punched in the face anymore. And I hope they'll realize that now.
And so, okay, so you know how personal this rivalry was. You know how it may not have been for you because you were just a coach and you don't strike me as that kind of guy. But you know about the history between those two. You were there for the two fights to build up all the drama. For it to happen against Tito of all people, and then to see his reaction, was there any part of you that was like, "Come on, Tito, like you weren't beating Chuck Liddell. This is not vindication." You know, like how are you reacting towards the whole celebration when you're seeing your guy Chuck on the ground there?
I have a big thing about people that celebrate until their opponent gets up. So I have to me, that's disrespect. I don't like that. But with that said, I don't think Chuck or Tito's little digging the thing and doing that. I think that was part of it, and I think it's an entertainment factor. And I don't think it was like he beat, a Chuck, an older Chuck, but he's an older Tito. So, I think it's relative, and I don't think there was anything wrong with that. And I think he finally beat, the guy that punked him twice. I mean, knocked him out twice, punked him at Ultimate Fighter show, beat him at every event, and he finally beat him. So I don't really think that his little his little act after the fight, I don't know. I think it was part of the whole scheme and the whole shenanigans of that whole. I mean, it was a crazy card. I mean, it was just kind of weird. The whole thing was weird. But I don't hold anything against Tito. Then he went and hugged Chuck and showed respect, and so I think it was something that he finally got to beat Chuck. I don't really think what he did was inappropriate. I really don't. I mean, he did beat an older Chuck, but he's an older Tito.
Right. Fair. That's a fair point. Was there a part of you that really wished that you could be in that cage on Saturday to just be with your guy to console him, even though you didn't agree with the whole thing, but just to be with him?
I really do. Yeah, I do. But with that said, my protection is a really big thing, and all my fighters and all the referees know that, how big I am at protecting my guys. Like I'm the towel throwing in guy. But Herb Dean was so quick, and he protected Chuck. He was right there. He did a freaking outstanding job. So I couldn't protect Chuck any more than Herb Dean did, because it happened so quick, and Herb Dean was like freaking right there, and I really appreciate that he was, and I'm really thankful and grateful for that. And he really, there's nothing else I could have done but hug Chuck after, and I wish I could have done that.
Yeah, Herb, one of the very best, as you know. I would imagine he was a little quicker on his toes for this particular fight, given the ages involved with both fighters.
He did a great job, and I'm really thankful for that.
So, have you talked to Chuck in the aftermath?
Yeah, we're gonna have a get together next week. Just a couple things I want to say, and I want to hear what he has to say. But there's nothing. I don't think I'm going to be surprised by anything. I just think he has such a good life, and we're just going to talk about. I'm just going to reiterate, please not again. That's going to be my biggest thing. Please not again, just because of his safety, and every one of you guys, everybody loves Chuck, and everybody wants the best for Chuck, and we don't want to see him in that position again.
Did you reach out to him, or did he reach out to you? And by the way, you're actually blocking the camera by holding it. If you could do it in the other hand, just so we could see your fully. See this hand? There you go. There you
sorry
go.
About that.
It's fine. We can see your full face anyway, so it's not a big deal. But did you reach out to him, or did he reach out to you after?
He texted me the next morning, but I texted him that night. I texted his wife. Just said basically no more. No, that's it, right? And then he texted me back. I'm fine. Oh, I talked to him.
Okay.
I actually called her. I was not in a good mood. I called her, and he was right there. So I talked to him, and he sounded fine. I was like, oh, that was like 10 minutes after the KO, and it was like he sounded fine, and that really relieved me. And then I texted the next morning, and then he texted me right back that he's gonna come up next week, and we're gonna have a little chat.
Even in the post-fight press conference, he wouldn't say that he was done for sure, that this was it. Why do you think he has such a hard time doing it?
I mean, it's hard. It's a hard thing for a fighter like him to do. I mean, that's been his identity, and that's been his life for so long. People don't understand that. It's like, it's just that's been part of his everything. Why do fighters have a hard time? I don't know about his money situation, but I know that there's fighters out there with no money problems that shouldn't be fighting anymore, and they just want that last. It's such a high. It's like an adrenaline, euphoric feeling. And I think it's hard for someone like him not to do it. That's his identity, So he says for 8 years it's been a void in his life. So hopefully this one, something else has to fill the void. Like you can't quit smoking and not, chew gum or drink more coffee or whatever. Just like you got to replace that kind of habit with something else. And with him, fighting is a much, it was his whole life. So until he can replace it with something, I think it's gonna be hard for him. He needs to fill the void.
Do you think if you were in his corner that this would have ended up differently?
No, I really don't. I want to trash his corner. I really do. But I can't because I don't know what the strategy was. But they seem like they know what the hell they're doing. They're some reputable guys, the McKee guys and stuff. So I don't think that when that one right hand landed, I don't think anything would have been different if I was in the corner. I don't think I could have changed anything. I really don't.
Do you think that
maybe I could have had something different in the strategy? But Chuck's not really good with strategies because Chuck wants to bang. So no matter what the strategy is, Chuck's default is bang.
Right. Do you think that was it for him? Do you think in your heart, do you think he'll ever fight again?
Yes.
Yes?
I don't think he will again. I do not think he will fight again. I'd be willing to bet on it. And I will be a lot more. And I should have been more active in this one in trying to stop it. I didn't because he's a grown man, and I didn't. I don't want to, get involved in money issues. And maybe so maybe he needed the money. I'm not saying he did, but I don't want to be the guy that well, yeah, you're gonna make X amount, but no, I'm saying you can't make that much money.
Right.
That who am I to do that? So, but now after this fight, I will be more proactive there.
John, I appreciate the honesty and the candor. I'm sorry it turned out this way, but thank you for coming on and talking about it.
Hey, thanks for having such a great show and a great platform. Thank you.
I appreciate it.